Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging hour discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, Tom K. Wilson, provides you with insight and guidance from his years of experience as a successful real estate entrepreneur on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate, and much, much more. Now, here's your host for Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
Thank you so much for joining us again and tuning into our real estate investing program, your number one source for all of your real estate needs and education in the arena of real estate investing. We're broadcasting from the number one business radio station in the San Francisco Bay Area, KDOW AM 1220, the Wall Street Business Network. I'm Tom K. Wilson, your host for the weekly program on real estate investing. If you can't make our live show, you can catch our podcast on TomWilsonProperties.com or on iTunes or on YouTube. And you can go to TomWilsonProperties.com to get a lot of investor education on both houses, commercial properties, multifamily properties, syndications, market issues and economics. And we also have a number of white papers that I think you might find very informative. We always welcome your questions and requests for topics and for guests, and we have quite a number of very interesting and expert guests coming up on the next programs here in the next several weeks. We also, if you go and sign up for our weekly newsletter on the economics of real estate, it will also allow you to get connected with us so that when we introduce new products that are only available to our clients, you will have access to those as well. So today we're going to, this program, we're going to discuss the multifamily business and talk about the pros and cons of that and how to make that kind of successful, and a little bit about syndications. And we have with us in studio today, we have Jean-Marc Landau, who's a 34-year experienced investor in real estate, and also many years of experience in the underwriting lender business. 3,500 loans in the residential and commercial arena that he has handled in his prior career, which is a great education in this arena. And we also have Neal Bawa with us, who is also a techie by education. He managed a profit center for education company for 17 years, and then has moved over past 8 years into real estate investing. And both of them are syndicators that we are partnered with for some of our products, and it's very nice to have both of you on the program today.
Thanks for having us on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
Let's talk about multifamily products. Jean-Marc, you've expressed on another program that you're one of those rare ones that didn't start off with houses and jumped right into the multifam arena. Why did you do that, and what do you like about multifamily?
I'm a numbers guy. I was started as an engineer, and in 1982 I was looking for a house, and with 19% interest rates, which was the prevailing rate back then, I couldn't qualify for single fam. Realized that once you looked at 5 units and up, the lenders look at the rental income, not your income. So I was able to buy a sixplex. The numbers have always made more sense. You can either, literally the first building, I was paying rent before that, and once we had the building, I was getting paid rent paid to me. The rents cover the mortgage, cover all the expenses, and still had some money left over. Of course, in today's market in the Bay Area, it's a little harder to cash flow that, which is why we're looking at other places, other markets.
Doesn't it make you nervous to have so many eggs in one address?
No, it doesn't. When we're looking at larger properties, we really look at the demographics and what's happening in the market, and we're choosing the market before we choose the property itself. So if we're choosing a market where the job growth is strong, where the population growth is strong, that's going to be driving rental growth up.
So you mean all multifamily properties aren't the same?
No, they are not at all.
Nor are all houses the same, right, for rental as well.
And what's the price of a house? I mean, I remember looking in Hawaii. I was looking at a lot on one side of the island, of the Big Island, for $4 million to build a single-family house. A 40-acre lot for $4.5 million to build 80 homes, and a finished 1,400 square foot house on the Hilo side for $5,000 finished. Very different product.
Neal, what do you like about multifam?
Well, there's so much to like. To me, mentally, when I make an image of single family versus multifamily, a single family is more like a car. Multifamily is like an airplane, right? So essentially, you're getting speed, you're getting efficiency, you're getting massive economies of scale by putting a whole bunch of those single families into one so-called airplane. And I never worry about putting too many eggs in that one basket, because there's so many people on a full-time basis watching that basket. When there's a single family, even if you live in the same city, you're not there watching it all the time. With a multifamily, we've got a staff typically for a 250 unit of 7 people watching it. Many of them actually live at that property, and they're working there 8 hours a day. So it's a very well protected basket of eggs.
Now, having very good point. I've owned 8 multifamilies, ranging from 14 to a couple hundred units, and I would. There's some proponents of the tweeners, 5 to 50 units, because it's they feel it's under the radar or out of the range of interest of a large investor, which indeed it is. But my experience is that they typically have not performed as well as the larger products that can afford a full-time on-site staff, and that supports what you just said. I think it's very important that if you're going to go into that arena, that kind of product, that it be large enough that you can have folks watching it. Then you greatly reduce your risk, I think, by having someone watching it all the time,
yes, as
well as the economy of scale of having maintenance that's much more efficient than farming all that out.
Absolutely, and I think for those folks that talk about the 6 unit to 50 unit range, an enormous amount of your time is going to go into it. And if you can afford to put that time in and you have the competency, you might do better. But when you look at the averages, the larger products tend to do much better. The risk is much lower. I see a lot more of the 5 to 50 unit properties going down, being repossessed by banks. I also see that some that are outstanding successes, but it's more leaning towards the one that go bad than the ones that do really well. So the scaled properties definitely do better.
I think if someone doesn't have the funds to or want to put that much of their percentage of assets into a large product, then I think they're better off either investing with someone else as a syndication, which we'll get to later, or two. I think the one time when the tweener can work is if you've got a property manager that has a large property, say next door, very close, that they know that market well, and they can keep an eye on it, and they can feed tenants to you. Now, what you got to be careful about is that they don't have a higher incentive for the owner of the bigger property and pull, and fill up the big one first and then yours second. But that's the one area where I think it can work. But yes, my experience is the larger ones tend to do better. Mm-hmm. Let's talk. Go ahead.
Just wanted to talk about the economies of scale a little bit. Obviously, if you have an on-site maintenance person, and again, we're not talking Bay Area salaries, but an on-site maintenance person might have a $17 or $18 an hour position. Yeah,
for those of you who are not used to outside the Bay Area prices, that's pretty typical, and they're pretty good at that price. Yep.
And so you have a very good maintenance person on staff that's doing your job, as opposed to if you have we're calling tweeners here. You don't have a full-time maintenance person. You have to hire a contractor that might be at $35 or $50 an hour doing exactly the same work as you're paying $17.
And a setup fee and a travel fee and all that sort of thing.
And then same thing on materials. If your property manager manages 4,000 or 5,000 units and they bring in containers of let's say vinyl plank flooring, you're going to pay a lot less through that than if you just go to Home Depot.
Indeed. Yep.
Or buy 200 sets of appliances, you're going to get a price break as opposed to buying 2.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And on, master insurance policy contracts and all kinds of areas you can get economies of scale by doing that.
Yeah.
But like any company, it's got to be managed well. So it's very critical that either you pick the right manager or your team with somebody who knows how to pick and has picked the right manager.
And talking about managers, it's actually easier to find a manager on a 200 unit than on a 50 unit. Mm-hmm. If you think about the incentive to do a good job on a 50 unit, they might be making $5,000 a year. On a 200 unit, they're making $50,000 a year.
Yep.
It's a lot easier to walk away from $5,000 a year as part of their portfolio as one of the elephants.
Neal, any thoughts on property management?
Yeah, similar. I completely agree with Jean-Marc on that. My belief is the best property managers tend to migrate towards the large properties, and they do that because it's to their benefit. So what I've seen is in the smaller arena, single families, it's hard to find very competent property managers. I'm not saying they don't exist. My single families are managed by somebody that's very competent. Mm-hmm. But what I see is, in general, they're going to migrate towards the larger buildings because they like the efficiencies and the economies of scale as much as we do.
Yeah, it doesn't take 5 times the staff to do a 500 unit product than it does a 100 unit product.
Yep.
And I think that's a very good point. Anything else about property management while we're on this topic before we wrap up this segment? Well,
I think what I've seen is the folks that are doing multifamily property management, the typical property manager is very metrics driven. And I think this is something that's interesting to folks in the Bay Area. A lot of the people that listen to your program are technologists and they're metrics based because they're running a business. A small property manager is not really running a business because the business is one property at a time, and every property is so different, right? The pricing is so different, the rents are so different that you can't really run it like an assembly line. A larger property manager really thinks of it as an assembly line, right? So when he's buying paint, he's not buying it for 1 unit, he's buying it for 200. When he thinks about an accent wall, he's thinking about painting 200 accent walls. So he's got everything is set up as an assembly line. It's all metrics based, it's all process based. And even if they themselves are not very good and their staff is not very good, you'll still get a better result because of this assembly line process that you're using.
Very, very good point. We have Neal Bawa and Jean-Marc Landau with us today on the program talking about multifamily properties, which you should know if you're interested in moving or expanding in that direction and what to do and what not to do. So stay with us here on KDW 1220 AM, the Wall Street Business Network, and our real estate investing program. We'll be right back with more good information on this topic.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
Our topic today is multifamily property investment, and we have Neal Bawa with us and Jean-Marc Landau. Both have a lot of experience in investing, the lending arena, profit center management, and they also are partners of ours in some of the programs and projects that we do. So we talked about property management. Let's talk a little bit more. Let's talk a bit about classes of product and what we like and don't like about them. So for those of you not familiar with it, there's not a real well-defined, but kind of a coarsely defined classes of A, B, C, D properties, and it's in all markets. And you want to talk a little bit about how we distinguish those and which ones you like?
Sure. Starting with A, these are the classiest properties. They typically tend to have great access to transportation, great amenities. You'll see the pools and the jacuzzis. You'll see the dog runs and those sorts of things.
Even sometimes a little wedding arch outside.
All kinds of very interesting stuff.
I own one with that.
yeah. So the great properties to live in, not necessarily the best properties to invest in. That's because if something breaks, you're expected to fix it immediately. So there's no deferred maintenance in these sorts of properties. You're buying at a very heavy price.
And probably not with something of a scratch on it.
Yeah, exactly. And so you're competing with institutionals and pension funds like the Hayward Unified School District's pension fund is buying properties. They want to buy something that is really brand new. And so these properties are typically, 20 years or younger, in many cases 10 years and younger, and are not the best investment options for investors that want cash flow.
And my sense is that the reason most large institutions, REITs, pension funds, insurance companies all stick pretty much exclusively with A is that there's a perceived lower risk. And what do you think about that?
I think the word that I liked there was perceived. I don't think that there's a lower risk, and at some points in the cycle there may be. But what I've found with these properties is really the lower risk is the risk that the property might go down or might be defaulting on. But if you're a pension fund, your goal is to make money for your investors. And I think what they're doing is they're shortchanging their investors.
I think so too.
On the risk side, but then on the reward side, these properties tend to do pretty poorly.
Yep, I've only owned one Class A property. Paid $10 million for it, 176 units. Gorgeous property, real pride of ownership. We had a model unit in it, which was my hotel for 10 years. That part I like, but its cash flow was kind of pretty mediocre. Okay.
So it's kind of interesting. I think the A properties are a beautiful investment for certain investors. Not really the goal that we're looking for, which is cash flow. But I've given this example to a number of people. In 1984, I bought my sixplex in San Francisco. In 1985, sorry. A friend of mine bought a co-op in New York, fabulous co-op on the Upper West Side. At the time, it was a pretty rough area. We each paid about $400,000 for the property. They paid co-op fees for 27 years. I have gotten positive cash flow for 27 years. But they sold theirs for $26.5 million. Mine might be worth $3.5. So which is the better investment? And if you look at an A investment, which that property was, versus a B investment, which mine is, that I've had the cash flow, they've had the property appreciation. So if you think of a pension fund or an insurance company that doesn't need cash flow, they're just looking for long-term longevity and appreciation of the capital assets. I think that's, buying in downtown San Francisco, for example, you're not going to get that cash flow. You're going to get the pop at the end. So that's just a very different perception of what the goals are. And from that standpoint, long term, they're not going to lose. It is safer, quote unquote, but you're not going to have the cash flow. There's risk in the lack of cash flow, which if they can make it up, reduces the risk.
And they pretty much, from my exposure, they pretty much want stabilized product. Whereas I think as a smaller boutique, if you will, investors and syndicators, as the three of us are, we can get some of that added equity in addition to cash flow by getting properties that we can add value to, right? By improving their quality or raising rents if they're below market and that sort of thing. So we'll be back in just a moment to talk more about the other classes of products and what they look like and what we like or don't like about them. We have Jean-Marc Landau with us and Neal Bawa, both very experienced investors and syndicators, and we'll be back in just a moment.
For more information on today's program, visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit reradiolive.com. That's reradiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
Our topic today is multifamily investing with Neal Bawa and Jean-Marc Landau, very experienced multifamily investors. Let's continue on the classes. Let's just tell for our listeners very quickly what B and C and D properties are like.
So we just talked about A properties. Coming to B, you get a nice mix of both the cash flow that the A's don't tend to have as much, but then you get benefits of the properties being in good areas. And so this is the blue collar, white collar mix of folks. You tend to have a medium range of amenities. So you might see a pool and a gym, but you're not going to see much more than that. And these properties tend to be 20 to 30, sometimes 20 to 40 years old. And a nice mix of both cash flow for investors, but then you also get significant appreciation because you're still in a good area. And the nice thing about Bs is when you buy them, very often there are a number of value adds that you can put in, things that you can do to increase the rents, things that you can do to increase the occupancy of the property. And so you in many cases, get the best of both worlds.
Okay, and C?
Well, I think I have a lot of friends that love C properties, and they do really well with them. So now you're going into an area that definitely the quality of the area is not as good. The quality of the building's not as good. The buildings are going to be older, so you need to be prepared for a lot of deferred maintenance. You need to be prepared for surprises. You're also likely to deal with issues such as a poor quality of schools, and significantly more crime. So not every C property has all of these problems, but you're likely to see a majority of these problems with C properties. Having said that, it's likely that if you can get it under control and get it stabilized, a C property will cash flow better than a B property, and it certainly will cash flow significantly better than an A property.
And sometimes you can find a CC plus property because of either age or deferred maintenance that's in really a B neighborhood, and if you can bring that up, then I think that's often a very nice value add proposition. Not that they're easy to find, but
it's a diamond in the rough situation. But that's really what we should be looking for, because if the quality of the area is better than the quality of your property, you have a tremendous number of options, and all of those options result in great value for your investors.
Jean-Marc, what has been your what have you had the most success with? Which class?
Well, it's also important to note that there is a property class and there's an area class. And
good point.
We picked up a C minus building, which I normally wouldn't touch, but it's in a B plus area, and we took the rents there from $475 to $875. You just transferred the C minus building to a B plus building, with heavy renovation. So we've played in both C's and B's, have had very good success in both. And again, it's just a mix of cash flow versus back end profits, and some are stronger on one, some are stronger on the other. We like both asset classes as long as you're not buying a building that's over improved for the area. We don't want to be the most expensive thing in the area.
So if I may extrapolate a little bit, and my sense is that your input says that it's really good to try to stick to Class B neighborhoods and up, but your best deals are if you can find something that's maybe underperforming in a Class B area, and then maybe might be a CC plus product, and go bring that up to B. But you'd like to have at least a B neighborhood.
Yeah, from a risk-reward perspective, I think that the best risk-reward ratio is going to be a C property in a B area.
Okay, we'll be back in just a moment. Talk some more about how to select a good multifam, how to select a good market for one to be in, and a little bit about syndications. So stay with us on KDAW 1220 AM, the Wall Street Business Network.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
We are talking about multifam properties today and what the pros and cons are of them. We've got Neal Bawa with us and Jean-Marc Landau, who don't often have guests who have as much experience as they do on multifam properties, and so this is an excellent opportunity to take advantage of their experience and what they're sharing with us. We've talked about the different classes of product and how there's actually a class of neighborhood and a class of product, and they don't always coincide, and there's some opportunities there. And I think just before the break, Jean-Marc, you had one more comment you wanted to make about classes. Yeah.
So Neal was just talking about Class B being the best risk reward. I actually disagree with that a little bit. I think C offers just as much reward. It's really a mix. And we have a C-class property in the landing path to Love Field in Dallas, Fort Worth, that's doing fabulously well. It's a super stable neighborhood. Because it's in the landing path for the airport, it's never going to be a high-class place, but it's always been highly occupied and doing very well. So again, I see strong possibilities in both C's and B's.
So my conclusion is that there's some nice, good general guidelines, but each product in each neighborhood is an individual one to analyze, and sometimes you can find some exceptions in there that can work quite well.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about markets. So we've talked a little bit about submarkets of Class A, B, C, and so forth. We won't even bother to talk about D, right? Those are
D is don't buy.
Don't buy. Those are one-night stand rooms. All right. Let's talk about metros. I know you're here in this area. You have invested in different regions, but I know. One of your favorite is Texas, and you like Dallas-Fort Worth. So what do you like about Texas? What do you like about DFW? Why there?
There's so much to like about DFW. When I'm looking at a metro, obviously the first thing I look for is a metro that cash flows well. And there's many of them beyond Texas as well. Mm-hmm. Once you get beyond the basics of cash flow, you're really looking at how's this metro doing from the perspective of population? Is it gaining population? Is that population gain consistent? Where are those people coming from? Is it gaining population from most states or some states? And then I look at the quality of jobs, both the quantity and quality of jobs. Why is this metro gaining jobs? And again, is that a consistent gain? And is the job gain higher than the population gain? Because that will give me multiples of benefits in terms of my profits when there's high population gain and even higher job gain. There's not a lot of metros in the U.S. that have high population growth and even higher job growth. So, but
and the Dallas, cash flow to go with it.
Yeah. And the cash flow to go with it. The prices are still low enough so that you can cash flow. So your choices do get narrowed down. Another piece that's super important to me is this a landlord-friendly state or is it a tenant-friendly state? So when I'm going in and I'm responsible for millions of dollars of investors' money, I want to go into a state that is landlord-friendly, that's business-friendly, that doesn't take 6 to 12 months to evict folks. And so when I look at all of these, I don't see a second option to Texas at this point in time. It's so far ahead of everybody else on these 4 or 5 things that we talked about that it really is far and away my top choice.
It's amazing that 1/3 of all the jobs added in the U.S. since the crash are in Texas. It's just absolutely stunning, and it just keeps on going. And unfortunately, in addition to landlord friendly, I think we all have shared that we like that it's business friendly, and that's why in the past decade there have been about 30 corporations that have moved from California to Texas. On this radio show, at times there have been commercials from Texas on if you're tired of doing business here, come here. We welcome you. And it's sad, but you just got to flow with where the market and the returns are and what works, right? People ask. None of us have ever. I've never lived in Texas, and I know none of you are from there. We're analytical folks, and we go where the numbers make sense, right?
Absolutely, and California is a state that loses the most amount of population to Texas and has for the last 2 decades, and it loses the most amount of jobs. And really, so the difference in political environment, the difference in business friendliness is enormous. And as as syndicators, we look for those sorts of qualities in a metro, not just in a state, but even at a metro level. How's that particular metro doing? We also look for diversity. So we don't want a metro that is just based on oil or just based on healthcare or just based on tourism. You want to see a level of diversity so that if one sector takes a hit, you're still going to do well.
Indeed, and certainly going from a NASDAQ-controlled metro like here, when I'm my early investing, to somewhere else, that was one of the attractions to me, was to have a broad-based economy that, a lot of people think there's even a significant technology component, but it doesn't run the ship. People don't realize that there's more high-tech jobs in Dallas-Fort Worth than all of Austin and Houston put together, which is just mind-boggling to many people who think Austin is where that is.
It's a huge metro, and those technology jobs are there supporting core technology, and they're also there supporting healthcare, they're supporting oil, they're supporting so many other verticals. So the diversity there is fabulous. And
it's about the same population, about the same physical size as San Francisco Bay Area. Many people are very surprised at how large it is, and I know it amazes me is before you even land in the plane, you look out and you see cranes all over the place, increasing infrastructure and building new buildings and so forth. It is truly the business capital of the South. It's, we all three of us are looking all the time at other metros to invest in. On occasion we do, but it's really hard to find a place that tops Texas and Dallas. That's why we keep doing it. When we get back after this break, we're going to spend just a moment talking about how multifam might perform moving forward, and a little bit about syndication. So we have Neal Bawa and Jean-Marc Landau with us today, multifamily investing experts, and they're sharing with us what they've learned about this business and where to invest and what kind of property to invest in and what not to do, and property management and so forth. KDOW 1220 AM. Stay with us.
For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Welcome back to Real Estate Radio Live, streaming live on iHeart, TuneIn, and KDOW.biz. For more information on today's topic or guest, just visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Again, your host for today's edition of Real Estate Radio Live, Tom K. Wilson.
Well, we could do many programs on multifam. We've done a number on commercial. We still like commercial. It's harder right now to find good multifam deals than commercial because there's a higher demand for them. I think that's partly for perception. But, people always have to live somewhere. And we've talked about when you can find something that returns as well on multifam, we still like it very much. We've talked about the different classes of product. We've talked about different classes of neighborhood. We recommend not having a class below a Class B neighborhood. Different classes of products can all work well. You have to analyze each of them very carefully because they differ. I just was with Dr. Doug Duncan, Chief Economist of Fannie Mae, back in D.C. Recently with Bruce Norris, and asked him about his thoughts about multifam property. If it's peaked out, there's some investors getting a little worried about it, and he said, well, it depends on the metro. It probably has topped out in some. Said, the main problem is Class A, and there's some metros that are getting a little bit overbuilt, and you have to be careful there. But in the B and C arena, places like solid job growth, like Dallas-Fort Worth, are still, he felt, were still very safe. And he is one of the best records of forecasting in the country. We'll wrap up with a little bit about syndications. Why what a syndication is and why that's good.
Sure. So a syndication really is just a pooling of capital to buy a larger property. If I wanted to go out and buy a 200-unit property, I wouldn't have the capital. But if we group together 20, 30, 40 people, each person investing, $50,000, $100,000, $500,000, whatever, you now have a pool of money that can go after a much larger property.
It's a sophisticated term for what now is popularly called crowdfunding in some respects, right?
Yes,
crowdfunding isn't
absolutely.
Crowdfunding, but some people kind of understand that more because it's been in the headlines more. But that's really what it is.
Right, and
people have been syndicating for probably thousands of years. So
yeah, and it's just it's just a legal structure. But what it really does is it puts at the it allows the common investor to get access to institutional type properties.
Yep,
and those returns.
And you're getting the expertise of whoever's putting it together. Obviously, you have to choose your syndicator very carefully, but they have access to a lot of deals, can pick the diamonds out of the rough, can already know who the great property managers are, which we've talked about in this program, how critical that is. And also they can qualify for the loan. So to many people's surprise, if you don't already have a lot of experience in either commercial or multifam, it's very hard to get a loan. So you need to team with somebody, and one way to do that is a syndicator. So we've covered a lot of territory here on this topic today, and maybe we'll just have to have you guys back and talk some more about it. So thank you, Neal and Jean-Marc, for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
And thanks for listening to this program. And remember, go to TomWilsonProperties.com and see what there's a lot of investor information. Sign up for our weekly newsletter, get access to future deals, and we look forward to having you back with us when we have other guests on in the near future here on KDOW 1220 AM on the Real Estate Investing Program. So thanks again for being with us, and for our guest in studio today. And remember, the only thing that matters is what you do next.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit RERadiolive.com. That's RERadiolive.com. Tune in, log in, download our podcast. Discover more at RERadiolive.com. RERadiolive.com.